right, everyone, welcome back to another tutorial at Crafts and Drafts. Today we are doing glass etching. Let's go over our materials first. So I have my instructions from Crafts and Drafts, of course. I've got a weeding tool. Yours might not look exactly like this, but basically it's supposed to just be a sharp pick, and it's gonna help you weed any details in your vinyl stencil. I've got a paintbrush here for when we get to the part of using the etching cream. I've picked out 2 stencils here that vary in complexity. I've got some painter's tape. This is optional, but I'll show you what we use it for when we get to that. I've got transfer paper here. I've got my etching cream, Armour Etch. I've got a cup of water just for putting my paintbrush when I'm done. And I also have some safety gloves for when we get to using the chemical etcher, and some safety glasses. This is a craft that does require a waiver because the etching cream is a chemical etcher. So if you get it on your skin, you just want to make sure to wash your hands really quickly. And of course, make sure that you don't have it on your fingers and then rub your eye or anything like that. All right, so without further ado, let's get started. I am choosing to do a wine glass today. If you're doing this at home, you can use any glass surface you want, even a mirrored surface. If you're at Crafts and Drafts, you get the choice of doing either a pint glass or a wine glass. First step is that we are going to weed all of our stencils. So weeding is the process of taking out the negative space, and all of the stencils here at Crafts and Drafts start like this. They've been cut, and I don't know how well you can see the lines in the light here. If you can't see it that well, it'll be revealed as I start weeding it. And then I also have one that's a little bit less complex, and by a little bit I mean a lot of it, because it's literally just gonna come out in one piece. So let's start with the simple stencil first. Glass etching, we want to take out the negative space of this stencil. Everything we reveal that shows the back of the stencil is what's gonna end up etched on our glass. So in this case, this is a heart. It's all gonna come out in one piece. I'm just gonna go ahead and take out that one piece, and this heart is what will end up etched on our glass. So it's easy with stencils like this. The more difficult ones come when we kind of have these multiple layered details, like this one I'm about to show you. So you wanna do this really slowly. Use the leverage of the table to your advantage, and go slowly to make sure we don't accidentally rip off any pieces of our stencil. All right, and then also make sure if you have any like the insides of E's or O's or delicate pieces like this that need to be removed, make sure you take those out as well to have the design completely weeded. With stencils that are complicated like this, the general rule of thumb is to take out every other piece. So you always want to have your border around here, around the design that's going to get etched, and then you sort of just work your way in. You want to take out the next piece, but then leave the next layer. All right, so now we have our 2 stencils that are weeded and ready to go. So the next step is to transfer these from the backing of this stencil to the glass. And the way we're going to do that is using transfer paper. So transfer paper, it's literally just to get the stencil from point A to point B without the stencil losing its integrity. So it does not need to be perfect by any means, but if I were to try to take off this sticker, for example, this home sticker, without any transfer paper, it would be a nightmare. It would probably fold in on itself. Once this is sticking to itself, it's probably not coming apart, so you might as well just grab another stencil. But with the transfer paper, I can actually turn this over. So we're gonna put that on the front of our design, and we're just gonna slowly peel back. Again, use the table as leverage, and just slowly peel back this whole design, little by little. And now we can take this is sticky, and we can put it on our glass where we want. Now, if you're doing a wine glass, I recommend keeping your designs, all of your designs, on the upper 2/3 of the glass. And the reason for that is the more we get to this curve down here, the more air bubbles we're going to get in our stencil. And when that happens, it just gives more opportunity for the chemical etcher to accidentally get underneath and to put little notches in our design. So you want to make sure you're keeping it to as flat a surface as possible, preferably up more towards the top. We're going to press everything down, and then we can remove the transfer paper because we've got our design on there. And you can still see that there's these little like air bubbles. Again, just because the wine glass is a lot more curvy, and so that is going to happen to some degree regardless. If you're looking for an easier option, the pint glass is all flat. It's a simple remedy. Just take your fingernail or even the back of the weeding tool and just kind of press these air bubbles out to make sure all of the edges of the stencil are just sticking to the glass. So we'll do our next stencil, and you can actually even reuse the same piece of transfer paper if you would like. And this is much easier because it is just one piece. We're not as worried about all of those little details as we were with the other stencil. All right, so now we have home on one side and we've got a cute little heart on the other. We're about to get started on the etching cream, but one thing that's worth noting is sometimes these stencils have pretty thin lines, pretty thin borders here. Anything that the glass etching cream touches, it will etch, even if it's just for a second. So you want to make sure that you have really solid borders all the way around. So to help with that, I am just going to go ahead and use some painter's tape around the edges of my stencil here, just to really thicken up the border and make absolutely certain that we don't have any of that etching cream touch other parts of the glass than the part that we intend. But let's go ahead and get started with our etching cream. Let me go ahead and put on my gloves. All right, so the etching cream, it's not really an exact science. You wanna make sure you don't have it on too thin, but as it does start working, it is going to thin out a little bit. I use the term light globbing. You wanna just make sure that the design almost becomes like a little bit opaque. You just don't want to do it so thin that you're etching the brush strokes into your glass. Okay, now these are both looking really good. So we are going to just let this sit and then we will rinse it off and reveal it. Off camera just now, I let my glass etching cream sit on here for about 7 minutes or so. And then I rinsed it off at the back art sink. It's important to note that while the glass is wet, you will not be able to see the etch. You won't start to see it until the glass starts to dry. So if you want to have a paper towel and make sure to just kind of like wipe it off, that will kind of let you start to see that etch a bit sooner. So let's go ahead and take off our stencils and see how we did. That heart is perfect. And I went ahead and wet down a paper towel here just to kind of get any of that crusted etching cream off. But you can see there's a great etch coming through now that it's drying. And these glasses are immediately dishwasher safe. You're not going to hurt the etch design again because it has been chemically etched on there. So it is ready to be washed. Clean this up a little bit. And again, as I'm using this wet paper towel, you can see that the design dims a little bit, but comes right back as the glass starts to dry. So that is glass etching. Thank you so much for joining and enjoy.